Mr. Mayor, we're now live.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Due to the COVID-19 emergency declaration, this meeting of Ajax Council is being held electronically and live streamed on the town's website. All members of council in attendance are participating by audio and video teleconference, and town staff are available throughout the meeting if council members have any questions on the agenda. For members of the public watching from home, please bear with us if we encounter any technical difficulties throughout the meeting. I'll now call this meeting to order. Does any member of council have any pecuniary interests on the items on the agenda tonight? Oops. Okay, hearing, seeing none. Oh, sorry, 1 second. I need to do the land acknowledgement. I'd like to begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas, more specifically the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of the 1788 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action in acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. I have the motion here, so let me bring it up. There we go. I need a mover and a seconder to go into closed session, please. Moved by Councillor Tyler Morin, seconded by Councillor Lee. The council convened into a closed session pursuant to section 239, paragraph 2E of the Municipal Act to discuss a matter pertaining to litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Those in favor of going in camera? Anybody opposed? That is carried. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we are live again.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We need to ratify actions taken in camera, moved by Councillor Lee, second by Councillor Crawford, that all directions approved during the closed session be ratified. Those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. And Mr. Clerk, we'll now take a 54-minute break till 7 p.m. We don't need to move that, do we?
Nope. We will go on recess now. Mr. Mayor, we are live again.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The adoption of the minutes. We have moved by Councillor Bauer, second by Councillor Tyler Morin, that the minutes of the previous council be adopted of the regular meeting of September 21st, 2021, and the closed session meeting of September 21st, 2021. Any questions, errors, and omissions on the minutes? Nope, hearing, seeing none. Those in favor of approval? That is carried. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, was there any questions submitted for question period?
Mr. Mayor, we've received no questions on tonight's agenda.
Thank you. Moving on, item 6, delegations and presentations. We have the 2021 Durham West Division update, Staff Sergeant Sean Carter and Staff Sergeant Kevin Yamada. Gentlemen, whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
First, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address council. Like the introduction was stated, Staff Sergeant Carter and I'm Staff Sergeant Yamada, currently acting inspector, sitting in for Inspector Mitch Martin. We're not sure when Mitch will be back, but I will be taking his place until he does return. We've already spoken about the community safety plan a few times, so I'm just going to give you an update. The police response in regards to what we're doing with our community safety plan. Once I finish the community safety plan, Staff Carter will talk briefly about the body-worn camera, a CCTV camera initiative, and just some general data on the Pickering Casino. So the community safety plan, it's broken up into 6 strategic objectives. The first being roadway safety, which is the biggest concern, tends to be the biggest concern for our community. The key outcome, or one of the goals, was to reduce motor vehicle collisions in the town of Ajax. And the data currently shows that we have a 18% decrease in the 5-year average. And with the injury rate for collisions, we're 2.2% lower. So we have maintained the commitment to that. There's been a few factors, obviously. COVID, the traffic hasn't been as voluminous, but regardless, there has been a reduction. Also with impaired driving was another focus for our key outcome. We have a 21% lower than average in our 5-year time frame. So we've also managed to meet that objective. Our provincial offense notice is basically our ticket and traffic enforcement. There is a considerable decrease in that, but we have looked into it and we've realized that COVID was also another problem, that there wasn't the volume of cars on the road. And one of the early messages that we had when we were going through the first couple phases of COVID, some of the concerns from our members were dealing with the public, because when we do traffic enforcement, we are most times, where our heads are into the cars, and not everybody wearing masks in the beginning. So one of the conversations that happened earlier in the year was to ensure that our members felt comfortable enforcing the Highway Traffic Act. So there was some discretionary leeway given to our police officers. And also it was to provide a little more discretion to the community, because obviously the community was facing the trauma from COVID. But now that we're kind of moving out of that, we are encouraging our members to continue that commitment to roadway safety. So traffic initiatives have started. We've done some ride programs. Obviously, Festive Ride is just around the corner, so we'll be participating in all of that. So the decrease was substantial. Like I said, it was 24% lower compared to the 5-year average. But we will, the message has been sent to our membership that to continue the commitment to roadway safety. Moving on to the property crime reduction strategy. We've had a decrease of 5% lower in regards to overall property crime offenses. But when we break down the property crime offenses, break and enters residential and break and enters commercial. There's been, the trend has been a 14% lower than average with residential break and enters. But again, COVID, there's been a lot of people have been working from home. And if they're not home, their neighbors are home. So our break and enter criminals are all paying attention because part of their MO is looking for driveways or signs where nobody's home. But it appears that I know on my street, it looks like everybody's home all the time except for myself. So that's been one of the indicators that we've looked at why the reduction in residential break and enters. But the increase on the flip side has been a 53% increase in commercial. So what we found is a lot of the strip plazas, nail salons for some reason has been a place of interest for our break and enter criminals. Some of the variety stores or anything in the strip plazas. And the MO again has been very simple. It's just bricks through the window and they're looking for cash. They're not looking at any product at all in any of these residential or commercial places. It's generally they're looking for the float. And a lot of places aren't even carrying a lot of float. So these tend to be just mostly damaged, but they are still considered and traced as break and enters. In terms of property, so the vehicle thefts have been a major concern for us here in Ajax and Pickering, but basically across the GTA. You may have seen York Region has just finished up their second major vehicle theft investigation. We've had an increase of 54%, and this is just in Ajax. So we've lost 107 vehicles, and the vehicles have tended to be mostly high-end Lexus, Toyota, and Hondas. The vehicles that are targeted are between 2017 and 2020. So they're looking for the newer vehicles. To address this, our property crime unit, which is attached to our Criminal Investigation Bureau, is currently putting together a project with the assistance of York Region, just for some guidance from what they did that was successful, utilizing some technology that I'm not really at liberty to speak of, but there will be some technology utilized and some other external partners, non-law enforcement partners that have joined our fight against these high vehicle crimes, namely the Insurance Bureau of Canada. Violent crime reduction strategy. There's been 435 violent crime occurrences in Ajax, but when we talk about violent crime, a lot of this lends into the harassing phone calls and threatening of that nature. Not necessarily when we think about violent crime, we think about shootings and stabbings. It's not quite like that. Percentage-wise, we have had physical assaults, but when it comes to firearms, the percentage is fairly small in terms of an increase. Firearm discharges, which I know is a big concern for us here in Ajax. There have been 11 shootings in Ajax this year, which represents a 4.4% increase. Firearm discharges this year have resulted in 1 homicide and 2 non-fatally injured victims. The 1 homicide was in the Ajax community housing area of River Breeze, well, specifically Smith Lane. But with our firearm investigations at West Division, a total of 16 crime guns have been seized, which is an increase of 7 from the year before. So it's a positive thing that we are seizing more guns, but the concern is how many more are we missing? This is a very big concern for us here at West Division, and I know it's very impactful for our community. one of the ways that we are addressing some of the violent crime, we launched a field intelligence officer initiative. And what this is briefly is it was a compliance check project that we put together. We identified an officer here at West Division who had close contacts with other intelligence officers in the GTA. So they would attend meetings and share information. And that information would be violent criminals who are residing out here in Ajax and Pickering. They'd be here with their living with their sureties. And because of the way it was set up, we were not fully aware of some of these violent criminals who are on charges outside of our jurisdiction. So what this was just a sharing of information. So we were able to get the data on all of the violent criminals who were living in Ajax but had charges somewhere else in the GTA. And the compliance check program was members daily were provided packages to basically go to their doors to ensure that these members were abiding by their conditions. If they were not abiding by their conditions, they would be arrested, or if they weren't there, warrants would be taken out for their arrest. Just some data. So this project went from March to June, and we did 215 compliance checks, which was a 22% increase in the 5-year period for this time. And some other data is 40% of the compliance checks in the entire region were done in West Division. So this field intelligence officer program has received some traction and attention from our leadership. And there are some discussions now about how to formalize the field intelligence officer program because it had such a positive response. And again, I know there's a lot of statistical data, but just keeping tabs on these violent criminals, knowing where they are, and if they were in violation of any of their conditions, they were arrested immediately and brought before the courts again, which is, I believe, is a very important piece to our community. Just moving through into the property crime, we are doing a lot of proactive patrols based on the data. Our crime analyst provides us updates all the time, and we're using directed patrol to address some of these property crimes. For instance, the break-and enters for the commercial places are generally happening between 2 and 6 a.m. So our night shift officers are detailed to have high visibility uniform cars, and we've have deployed plainclothes cars to conduct surveillance. We still continue with our knock initiatives, the notification of community crime, just to keep our neighbors or our neighborhoods aware of the crime trends. Early in the year, there was a lot of the Zoom calls similar to this, but we have been able to get out in the last month and having some face-to-face town halls in parks. So we're still abiding by some of the social distancing and the masks, but we're outside and we're getting good response from the community. Lock it or lose it is still another information sharing method we're using, and we're doing the same thing. There was some social media pieces, town hall video. We had a pre-recorded video, and we're also out in the communities. Our community engagement, we have been extremely busy here with our community engagement piece. We've been working closely with an organization called Durham One. We've done, and specifically with our racialized community, we've been doing community engagement pieces with officers and the youth. And they're talking about all types of discussions, current event stuff. Some of it is actually, some of these community members have actually shown interest in policing. So we've been talking about policing as a career. And just on Saturday, we assisted with the Know Your Rights campaign, and that campaign was directed at the youth, and it was just letting the youth know about their rights when dealing with the police. We were able to have Councillor Lee join us, and it brought a great perspective to the group. We're also starting to work with the Ajax Anti-Black Racism Task Force with Mariska Thomas. This relationship is fairly new. I spoken at her church earlier in the year, and we are presenting to their organization for the first time on October 21st. And we are very excited to be presenting to her and the organization. We're going to be talking about body-worn camera, which they were one of the voices from the community that was kind of, part of the catalyst through our police services board. And it just really shows that, we were listening, our police services board were listening. So we'll be working with Mariska and her group throughout the year. Town halls, we've been doing a few at River Breeze and Buggy Lane. So we're doing all of the communities. There's been a few in between there, but River Breeze and Buggy Lane are the ones that we've done, probably a couple with each. We're also working with Shashi Bhatia with Grassroots. So we are at a lot of events with Sashi. She is a firecracker for us. She is so well connected in the community, and we are so blessed to have a good relationship with her. We've been doing some events with the Legion, and the most recent one we did was a food drive with the Rotary Club. Our enhanced communication kind of blends into our community engagement piece, but we also are still participating with the Community Safety Advisory Council. We will have our last meeting probably in November. 6 people from Ajax, 6 people from Pickering, and we have a couple new members which have joined, which is great to see. Social development. So continuously working with CARIA, the support organization. In River Breeze, we did 4 food share events in August and September. And it was a great response from Kevin Bradley and the members from Ajax Community Housing. One of the new social support initiatives that we've started, and our first one was at Smith Lane. I don't want to take all the credit for it. It was sort of titled Community Healing. And that was early in the year when I was just started to work in my position. I was dealing with Kaylee Da Silva, and we talked about this community healing piece. But we actually got it actioned. So the concept around the community healing is we do a good job whenever there's a major incident and the police presence are there, our mobile command is there, we're gathering evidence, we're doing all these interviews, but then we would leave. And we found that the community was basically asking, like, we're not feeling well. We still have some questions. They're not sure about their safety, and some were actually suffering from, I wouldn't say PTSD, but some of them may. But they were suffering from some crisis impact from these incidents. So through some other organizations, CARIA was one, Victim Services is another that we use. We would go back into these neighborhoods, and this was River Breeze, and it wasn't necessarily a police function, but we were able to network the support groups with the community members who needed help, and they would go and provide crisis counseling and youth counseling. River Breeze was our first. We just did one in Pickering, and that was our second, and we're still getting very good response from the community. In terms of social development,
Sergeant Yamada?
Yes.
Just one sec, guys. Great information. However, we do have a 10-minute limit, and we're at about almost 20 minutes so far on the first subject. So I know council's gonna have a lot of questions. So I just ask if you could just pick it up a little bit so we can get the questions.
Certainly.
I don't want to minimize what you're saying because it's very important.
Okay, the last piece I have was the shelterless community. We're working with, we've already started work with the Doors of Compassion, because the Harwood Plaza obviously is an issue. So we will be putting together a working group with the Doors of Compassion, a counselor from Ajax, the police, bylaw, and some of the retail people there. That's all I have for the community safety plan.
Okay, body worn camera. I'm gonna go in super speed mode here because I know we are way over time. So we launched this initiative in September. West Division was a part of phase 1 along with traffic and North Division. So by the end of October, we're gonna have approximately 160 officers trained and equipped with body more cameras. Just some data on the casino. So far, the casino has had very low impact for us. We have had approximately 220,000 customers since July attend the casino. In September, we had 94,000 customers in the casino, and right now we are operating at half capacity. So it's been very, very low impact for the police. And the last thing that we're talking about is we got a provincial grant for CCTV cameras for the Monarch Mews and River Breeze area. This is going to be stationed on the streets right outside the complexes. And that is all.
I apologize for going over.
It's all good. Sorry, the first one took a while, so I just had to mention something, but I think it's all good and we all really appreciate it. Thank you very much. First question on the list is Councillor Lee, and I have Councillor Tyler Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Staff Sergeant Carter and Inspector Yamada for the presentation. I was wondering if you could speak, if you're allowed to speak on the COVID vaccination rates of West Division.
That's a very good question. I'm sorry, I don't have the data.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you able to share anecdotally whether you think it's more than half, 3/4, almost 100%?
Now, are we talking about the community, or are we talking about us as in the police department?
Within the police department.
So that's a very sensitive topic. Our association has protected a lot of the members.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a mystery. We had a survey that went out, and I think it was only about 60% of the people participated in the survey. But that's not necessarily saying that we're under 60% in the police department. Some people just decided not to bother with the survey.
Sure.
We are obviously we're signing in. We're taking our temperatures. There's masks worn throughout the building. We're still with single officer cars. We have not doubled up with our vehicles except for our training officers and the new recruits. We're kind of moving into some normalized activities here, but I don't have any real hard data for that because it's been very sensitive and protected.
That's fair. I just know that we had passed the motion for all region staff at regional council this past regional council, and I was just wondering if there's a trickle down yet. There's no information report. That's fine. Obviously, we hope that as many officers will get double vaccinated so that, really set the example for the public, but we'll leave it at that. My final question is on the CCTV camera initiative. So it's something that we're wrestling with at the town of Ajax as well, of just the information policy of a CCTV initiative. Like does the DRPS or does West Division have some sort of privacy bylaw or just a certain code of conduct of how information is gathered through these cameras and how it is kept and who has access to it?
So these particular cameras that we're talking about, these CCTV cameras, are the license plate readers.
Okay.
So inside the Ajax community housing places, River Breeze and Monarch Mews, they have excellent CCTV cameras there that monitor people and places. The cameras that we're talking about are license plate readers, and it's just to assist in the event that there is a criminal offense, because the vehicle and license plate tends to be one of the key pieces of evidence that could assist us to investigate thoroughly. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
No, it does. I mean, it's more focused on plates as opposed to faces, which is important to me personally. So those are all my questions. Thank you both, and thank you, Chair, for the questions.
Thank you, Councillor Tyler Moore.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, staff, and thank you, Inspector, for the presentation. Inspector Yamada, can you just tell us again the name of the homeless initiative that you just said it just a minute ago, and it sounded great, but I didn't quite catch it.
Well, we haven't named the initiative yet, but we are working with the Doors of Compassion. Is a is a facility for our shelterless community. They're located in the Harwood Plaza. Now, what is happening, the hub for our shelterless people in Ajax used to be, well, it was at the McLean Center. We've received information, it's going to be relocated to the Doors of Compassion. The last time I spoke to the staff at the Doors of Compassion, they're waiting for some licensing. What that's going to cause is more people to congregate around the Harwood Plaza who will require these services. So I've reached out to Councillor Bauer and the people from the Doors of Compassion. We're just going to identify the other stakeholders that are going to be impacted by this, like the retail and some of the neighborhoods that are around that Harwood Plaza. So that is going to happen in probably next month. We'll probably get our first meeting going so we can have a strategy and identify sort of everybody's lane to address the issue.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, and thank you for your work on that. And if I may, just one other quick question. With regards to the ever-present loud mufflers, it's getting colder now, so it'll probably be a little bit less. Do you, as an organization, need some legislative changes to the Highway Traffic Act to really get your teeth on this? Could you speak to that really quickly? I know you didn't mention it, but it's a very important issue to a lot of our residents about loud mufflers and loud cars. And I know that you've done some initiatives, but just quickly.
We had that one initiative up Westy there, number 2 Westy. I think there was 100 or so provincial offense notices. But yes, we could use some help from the province. It's very labor intensive, obviously, but the powers that we have are, I would say, they're not strong enough. Our traffic management, traffic services unit is the unit that really, were the overseers of that project. Our traffic coordinator here and members from the division assisted. But I know it's been a massive issue, not just here in Ajax, it's pretty much right across the GTA. So yeah, a united front with some support from government would be something we would definitely benefit.
Okay, thank you so much. That's really key insight for us. The powers of DRP are not strong enough on that file. And I understand it's labor intensive. Thank you so much, Mayor Collier.
Councillor Crawford is next, followed by Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your report. It's always great to hear from our reps there at DRPS. Goes without saying, I'm thrilled to hear that the body-worn cameras are up and running. And I understand as of September 16th, there was about 100 cameras out on officers. Is that correct?
Yes.
Good. With regards to Pickering Casino, so the numbers of 220,000 people to date from July, is that up to September?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So it's roughly about 73,000 people going through there a month. Is that probably accurate, right?
Yep.
At half capacity?
That is correct.
So given that our premier is looking to come out of stage 3 in the near future, does that mean that cap will go up?
I think that is a fair bet, yes.
Do you think to full capacity?
I don't know if we've had that confirmed 100%, but I would assume so.
So we can roughly see those numbers double, I would think, right?
Yes.
Their hotel is not open yet?
Their hotel is slated to open next spring.
Next spring. And what about the entertainment center?
I haven't had it confirmed yet, but I heard next July.
Okay. Because then the numbers will go up again after that, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
That will be a game changer. I mean, the casino right now with the low numbers, it's very manageable.
Mhm.
When Durham Live gets to be full, it's basically going to be like a city within our city.
Yeah.
So we are still working closely with the casino. In fact, we speak weekly with their updates. Obviously, COVID and with construction and everything else has been a delay for them, but yeah, at some point mid next year, they're expected to be fully operational.
So for us, I would say car traffic has not been impactful. I believe that they have managed that flow of traffic fairly well. Our biggest impact on Church Street is still truck traffic, dump trucks. It gets better and then it gets worse. It's like this all over the place. That's the impact that our ward is noticing the most, is the truck traffic. And I sincerely appreciate any help that you can give on that one for sure. I know that that'll likely go, I don't think that will go down because they have a lot of construction that's going to continue to happen even after the entertainment and hotel center is up, correct?
That's correct.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to thank you. Again, the community healing piece was extremely successful at River Breeze. I was very impressed, and I look forward to the next town hall that you have. I think you're maybe talking about body worn cameras and sex trafficking. Those were a couple of things that we were throwing out there. So I'm looking forward to that. I think it's great to be able to connect directly with you, and I really appreciate you coming today.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bowers next.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Thank you so much for this update. So informative, really great to hear some positive statistics as well. I wanted to ask you about the roadway safety and community engagement topics. So I know that both the Road Watch Committee and the Neighborhood Watch Committee sort of had to take a step back even before COVID, but definitely over COVID. So I was just wondering if you have any comment about either of those sort of community groups and how they're being revived or getting back in action, and how much you're working with them.
So the Road Watch piece, we've gone through, like always, we have gone through some staffing changes. Colin Lamanis was our traffic liaison coordinator for a period of time, and he was on top of all of this. We have a new temporary traffic coordinator, and he's still getting his feet wet and making the connections. So this is on his list of things to do, is to reconnect with the roadway safety steering committee, and also to ensure that he attends or keeps on top of it and attends Vision Zero. So these are two items that our traffic coordinator will be responsible for, and we will ensure as the leadership that he gets himself involved.
Wonderful. And any comments about Neighborhood Watch?
Same with Neighborhood Watch. Part of the problems was this virtual piece. But here at West, we have some officers that are, I wouldn't say designated, but generally take the initiative to get involved. But we will ensure that we get that moving again. I think we have one Neighborhood Watch person that was out at Community Services, but I'm not sure if she's still there. So again, the movement of our members, it tends to create these gaps, but we're kind of dealing with that in that particular field.
Okay, great. I wanted to thank you for mentioning the work that you're doing with the shelterless community, particularly in downtown across from Town Hall. I know Regional Councillor Dyes and I are eager to help in that regard with the relationship building, and especially with winter fast approaching. We certainly need to come up with some strategies. So thank you for mentioning that and working so diligently to come up with some strategies that involve everybody. No question there, just a comment. And then I also wanted to make another comment. You mentioned the body worn camera and the Ajax Anti-Black Racism Task Force, who really encouraged that or made some positive notes about that. I'm glad you're going to be working with them further, but I wanted to also give a shout out or acknowledge how hard Regional Councillor Crawford worked in that regard. She really championed that. So I wanted to just shout that out, Marilyn. And that's all the questions and comments that I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
you.
Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff Sergeants Yamada and Carter. First of all, thank you for your presentations. And Staff Sergeant Yamada, I just want to thank you personally for the communication and the collaboration that we've had together. You've given me great confidence to, serve my community better and more educated to do so. On that note, the code reader is something that is very dear to my heart. We're still getting a lot of loud mufflers and a lot of speeding happening up in Ward 2 here. Do you have any data whatsoever on how well we've done with those code readers?
No, sir, I do not have that. But what I'll do is I'll reach out to our traffic experts and I'll get that information for you.
And that information comes directly through you, correct? So I can call you up on that?
It's generally done at our regional, like our regional traffic guys take care of that. But what I will do is I will get the information from them and I'll find out who the point of contact is on that.
Okay, very well. Look forward to hearing from you, sir. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We still have a cricket match that we need to play, sir.
Whenever you're ready. It's getting cold now, though, but yes, we will do that.
Yes,
We'll
sir.
plan it.
Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dice.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate your presentation tonight. I'm really interested in the work that you were doing within the community, going into a community after a violent crime and working with those who need some assistance, who've been traumatized by that. And I think that's really important. And looking at other housing in ownership or management, they have also other programs that are ongoing that work with the community and build the community within that housing development. And I'm wondering, you did mention there were a couple of, you had a couple of organizations come in and assist. Are there any that do ongoing work with these communities? I know such as community gardens, there's all kinds of different ideas and activities that bring people together and give them a sense of pride and place. So it's an ongoing, I see it as ongoing work and wondered if that's been something you look at.
Yes, so Caria, we were introduced to Caria earlier this year. They were well established in Oshawa, but they have an office in Ajax and an office in Pickering. When we introduced them to Ajax Community Housing, they actually have developed their own relationship. So it's not so much us now inviting Caria, it's Caria that invites the police to assist in some of their programs. So Kevin Bradley and his group there at Ajax Community Housing and Caria have, like I said, have their own relationship. So that is an ongoing piece. This food share was something that they arranged. We were just sort of the connect for them. But that is something that's ongoing with Caria and Ajax Community Housing. So whenever there's events, or if there is a need, Kevin Bradley can reach out directly to Caria. I think we're talking about perhaps there might be something at Christmas, a gift piece for some of the youth at Christmas. So there will be something coming up probably for the Christmas season.
Well, that's good to hear because it's really important that the residents meet each other and get to know each other. And then there's a sense of trust and not fear at the end of the day. Also, I just wanted to echo Councillor Bauer's appreciation for the work you're going to do, whether you call it shelterless, homeless, or houseless. We've seen an increase here in Ajax everywhere, really, due to COVID. So it's a real concern. We need to get them, comfortable for the winter. So I'm looking forward to having a discussion with you in the future. And thank you for that.
Thank you.
Further? I had a couple of questions. Somebody already asked about the loud exhaust on the mufflers twice. My offer, Kevin, to come sit on my front porch any day stands.
I I accept.
You've already asked the question about casino, Councillor Crawford, and the my only last one was the reduction in roadway safety is good. Is that in accidents, or is that in speeding, or is that in both?
Motor vehicle collisions, decrease of 18% and 2% with the injury rate. So it's all sort of relative. But again, we would like to take all of the credit for it, but it's just, you know, the volume, the car volume, because earlier in the year, you know, we'd look out our window here at Kingston and Brock, and it was a bit of a ghost town. So it's just the residents or the community traffic, it was lower. So we are still doing in our high traffic areas, we are being very visible there. So we do have an impact, but we can't take credit for all of it. We have to be very honest that COVID, if anything positive came out of COVID, it reduced our traffic flow for a bit. But now we're starting to see, we're looking out now, and it's looking a bit more normal.
Okay. Well, we do have, I wondered if it was to do with the automatic speed enforcement or red light cameras or a combination. We have our program starting in December. So anything we can do to help, we'll do. And I want to say on behalf of myself and council, thank you to both of you and all of Durham West for everything you do to keep us and our residents safe. Thanks for your presentation tonight.
Thank you very much. I apologize for taking too much time, sir.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, our next presentation is Vision Zero. I see Mr. Kemp here. Whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I appreciate this opportunity to be back to speak with you. It was, I think, almost exactly a year ago, the last time I was in front of you or across the screen from you talking about our Vision Zero initiatives. We do work very closely with our colleagues at DRPS on our Vision Zero task force, as well as with Regional Councillor Crawford, who is the Regional Works Committee rep on the Vision Zero task force. So thank you, Regional Councillor Crawford, for that, and thank you to DRPS for all of your efforts as well. So next slide, please. So I went through this last time, so it'll be very, very brief because it's really a review, but Vision Zero is a program that originated in Sweden that's taken off all over the world in all kinds of different jurisdictions. It's a little bit different than traditional North American approach to traffic safety, and there's three basic pillars. One, no one should be killed or seriously injured as a result of a motor vehicle collision. The second point, we know that as humans we make mistakes, so as engineers we need to make sure that our road designs are done in a way to accommodate that fact. No one should have to lose their life because of a mistake on the road. And third point, that collisions don't happen by accident. All collisions are preventable. So we fundamentally believe that if we get to the root cause of these collisions, we can find ways to get these numbers down and work towards our vision of zero. Next slide. So yeah, overall vision, 0 people killed or injured across all modes of transportation. Obviously, a long-term goal that we're working towards. So we've established kind of interim goals, as you'll see on the next slide. We're looking for a 10% reduction in fatal and injury collisions over a five-year period. And as you heard in the last presentation, we are the one good aspect of our COVID experience is that our collision data is down substantially from previous years, but we're very cautious and reluctant to take credit necessarily for all of that, because we know our traffic volumes were down over 50% for much of the last couple of years. So that directly attributes to some of the reductions we've seen. Next slide. So just a reminder, as part of our Vision Zero plan, we established these 8 emphasis areas, which our data shows are kind of the top categories of injury and fatal collisions in Durham region. So we know that almost all of these collisions are happening at our intersections, so we need to focus on that. Aggressive driving, which includes speeding, is number 2. Distracted driving, young drivers, particularly males 16 to 25, are overrepresented in our data. Pedestrians, impaired driving, both alcohol and drug impairment, cyclist collisions, and we're also focusing on commercial vehicle operations, as they seem overrepresented in the data as well. Next slide. So data itself, let's start with the good news. The top graph is the total per year of total collisions, Durham region by year. The graph on the bottom shows a similar trend for the town of Ajax. 2021 data is a little misleading because it lags behind a little bit. It's obviously not a full year of data, but the data also lags behind. But it is there's definitely a downward trend, and the real test will be to see what happens as the traffic volumes start to creep back up, like they're already doing. Whether we can keep these numbers on the low side, that'll be the real test. Next slide. So first slide was kind of good news. This slide is not so good news. It seems like although our total collisions are way down, our serious injury and fatal collisions seem to be on a bit of a different track. They haven't gone up necessarily, but they've stayed pretty static overall. So the number of fatalities year by year through the region has been pretty consistent, and the same trend kind of applies within the town of Ajax as well. We think this is attributed to speed mostly, because we saw during the time periods where we saw the traffic volume so low, we know that the average speeds were way up, and we were working with DRPS on some targeted enforcement in certain areas where we saw the highest speeds on some of the regional roads. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to give you a bit of a specific update on what's happening with our red light camera and automated speed enforcement program. And I guess up front, first off, trying to get the message out that people understand that the program is actually not run by DRPS. We work closely with them, but both the red light camera program and the automated speed enforcement program is run by municipal services across the province. So regional staff, my team, are working on the programs for regional roads, and staff at the local level are also working on similar programs for their jurisdictions. So just as a reminder, in the region, we have 12 red light cameras in operation. There's a total of 423 sites in the province, but 12 of them in the region. We have 3 cameras in Ajax, Bailey at Salem, Westney Road at Delaney, which happens to be the highest offense location region-wide, and the third one at your border at Lake Ridge and Taunton Road. So those are the 3 locations. We've issued about 2,300 red light camera violations, $325 fine per each offense region-wide. And you can see the breakdown on the next bullet there by location. So 38 charges at Salem and Bailey, almost 700 at Westney and Delaney, and just over 20 at Lake Ridge and Taunton. we have seen collision reductions at all of our red light camera locations, but it's impossible really to link, directly link the presence of the red light camera to that reduction due to the COVID-19 related traffic volume reductions. So we're trying to work through some creative ways of separating out those variables and see if we can measure the safety effect of these devices. Next slide. So automated speed enforcement, or ASC. On regional roads, we have 4 mobile ASC cameras in operation. And I apologize, I didn't get a chance to update the slide, but there's just over 120 speed cameras in the province, 50 in Toronto and 50 in City of Brampton. So they make up the majority of them, and the rest of us kind of have much smaller deployments. We've only had 1 location in Ajax on Bailey Street east of Harwood, and the camera is actually deployed there as we speak. Region-wide, we've issued over 50,000 charges since we started the program, and the Bailey Street location, we issued 637 charges during the time period we were running enforcement operations there, which is September 8th to October 18th, 2021. I don't have any data for the current deployment yet, but we will soon. We have some plans to install permanent speed camera equipment, and one of the sites we have planned is this Bailey Street site. So our plan is to have that fixed permanent speed camera up later this year or early next year. And I'll just mention the Bailey Street site just happened to be the highest speed recorded to date through our program region-wide. Not something to be proud of, obviously, but 196 kilometers per hour in a 60 zone in the middle of the night along that stretch of road. And final note on ASC, we are working closely with town staff to assist them with their efforts on deploying cameras on local municipal roads. Next slide. So we have seen significant speed reductions associated with all of our camera deployments. So I've been trying for 25 years to find, as an engineer trying to find ways to get people to slow down, changing the way we do designs, putting up signs, pavement marking, speed bumps, you name it. We've tried everything, and frankly, nothing has really worked, at least not to the level that I think our communities expect. Speed cameras are different. So we put the camera out, we put the signs up telling them that they are there, and drivers do slow down. So the graph that you see here is from Bailey Street east of Harwood. The camera was installed in the field in June of 2020, which is the left edge of the graph. I don't know if you'll recall, but it was there for a number of months, just in data collection mode. We didn't issue any charges through the summer. Our charging period started on September 8th, which is the black vertical line that you see there, and the camera remained in place into October. When we first started, over 60% of the vehicles passing the site were speeding. So you can see the left side of the graph, the 60 at the top. That means 60% of all the vehicles that pass that point were exceeding the speed limit. At the end of the enforcement period, it was down to about 25% of the total traffic passing the site speeding. So nothing we've tried before has made this kind of difference, short of having traditional police enforcement there 24/7, which just isn't practical. This has really been the only thing that we've seen so far that works. One thing I'll just mention from this graph, you'll notice that it bounces around all over the place. It's kind of up and down. It follows a trend line down, but it has these peaks and valleys. Those represent weekends. So we see there's really a big difference between weekend data and weekday. So that's why the graph looks like that. Next slide. So I don't want to leave you with the impression that Vision Zero is only about red light cameras and automated speed enforcement. We do have other initiatives in the works, including a number of speed limit reductions on regional roads. We've been implementing a lot of improvements for pedestrians and cyclists, including improved pavement markings in the crosswalks, pedestrian countdown signals at our traffic lights, and separate bicycle signals at traffic lights for cyclists to try to improve the operations for them, and also the third point, a lot of effort going into power backup systems that are traffic signals. Like I mentioned, large number of our collisions are happening at intersections. Some of those collisions are happening when we lose power. So we're investing in technology that allows us to keep our traffic lights up and running even when the power goes out. So that we're rolling that out across the region, as many locations as we can get done. As time and budget allows, we're installing that equipment. That's the end of my presentation. Be happy to take any questions. My contact information there is there as well if you'd like to follow up with me afterwards. Thank you very much.
You're muted.
I did it. Oh, I hate that. Only person out on the speaking list so far is Councillor Crawford. Go ahead.
Thank you, Steve, for coming. I really appreciate the update. I'll probably hear it again on Thursday. A couple things. So you were talking about cycling lights. Now, I don't know this. I only know this one light that has a cycling light, which is Riverside and Roslyn. Is there other ones in Ajax?
Actually, I believe that is the only one in Ajax. We have others across the region, and there are more coming, but that's the only one in Ajax so far.
Can you explain it to me? Because it seems to me that the light changes when the traffic light changes too. Is it to go before, like can you just explain the advantage of the cycling light? Because to me, it seems like we're going at the same time as the cars. And if that's what it is, then that's what it is. I'm just trying to understand the advantage.
Yeah. So at almost all of our traffic signals, the bicycle green is going to come on at the same time as the vehicle signal. Really, the advantage is that you don't legally have to dismount off your bicycle to cross. So without a bicycle signal, you are supposed to dismount from your bike and walk through the crosswalk. Not many do, but that's what the Highway Traffic Act says. With the bicycle signals in place, you can legally ride through.
Good to know. Good to know. So the pedestrian light, is that where the pedestrian gets a head start to the rest of the traffic?
So I didn't specifically mention that, but we have been implementing those as well. The leading pedestrian interval, we call it, where the walk indication on the traffic light will come up 5 or 6 seconds before the vehicle green to give pedestrians a bit of a head start into the intersection before other traffic is allowed to turn. It's being rolled out in a very big way in the city of Toronto. It kind of got its start in New York City. We have a few installations done in the region. None of them are in Ajax, but stay tuned. They are, we have more planned. So that's something that we have on the way.
The last time I think you were here, you had mentioned dangerous intersections, and I think we dinged on all three as the highest risk intersections: Westney 2, Salem 2, and then I think Harwood and Roslyn as a local. Now, I was speaking with Inspector Yamada a couple weeks ago, and he was saying that Westney actually has roughly 90,000 cars through that intersection on a daily basis. So actually, it's quite amazing that we don't have more accidents than we actually do. But are we still number one for dangerous intersections?
It's actually changed a little bit, and I should have maybe presented that data tonight. So, so the top three, or bottom three, as I like to call them, Brock and Highway 2 is the worst in the region. Simcoe and Taunton, and then Thixton and Consumers. So Ajax is not in the top three. If I
Interesting. Brocken 2 is right where the police station is.
yeah. If I look at Ajax data only, Kingston Road and Harwood is the highest. Kingston Road and Westney is very close, second, and Kingston and Salem is 3.
Okay, great. I think that's all I had. I think you're also doing, are you not doing a communication around it's getting darker earlier? And I think pedestrians risk their lives sometimes crossing the intersections, but mainly because they can't be seen. They're wearing dark clothes, there's no lighting, no reflection. I think, are we not doing some sort of comms on that one?
Yeah, that's correct, Councillor. We have a few different public education campaigns in the works. One that we always do around daylight savings times, because our data shows a definite peak, particularly with pedestrian and cyclist collisions when it starts to get darker earlier. So we have that coming. Next week is National Teen Driver Safety Week. So we have some communications coming around that. And at the last regional works committee, there was some conversation about a couple of other initiatives that we now have some public campaigns in the works on, including speeding on rural roads in the region, which is a particular problem, and also interaction with farm vehicles, which for the rural municipalities is an issue this time of year, with a lot of those big farm vehicles out on regional roads. So we have a lot of public information stuff coming out in the next little while.
Great, thanks very much for the update.
Thank you. Next is Councillor Tyler Moore.
I'm okay, Mr. Mayor. Our representative for Vision Zero, we're lucky to have
very thorough.
On our council.
Any other questions?
Yeah, thank you.
I just have a couple, just for clarification, please, Steve, because I am very, very interested in the red light cameras and the automatic speed enforcement and their effect. You gave the stats for the 3 cameras in Ajax. Are those pretty much average for across the region? I mean, okay, I'm guessing the Westney Delaney is probably the highest in the region.
Yeah, that's true. Westney and Delaney kind of stands out as in our overall data, but the others are, yeah, about average. We're seeing we're getting about 200 to 300 charges a month from our 12 cameras.
So I want to focus on the Westney Delaney, because that one I know has a right turn camera. Is that the only one in the region with a right turn capability?
Nope, there are a few others. So Westney and Delaney is unique because, or somewhat unique because there is no right turn lane in the direction that the camera faces. So at some of our other red light camera sites, if there is a right turn lane, we don't capture red light violations in that lane. But because it's a shared lane, both through traffic and right turning traffic can use the same lane. The camera can pick up red light runners, regardless of whether they're going through or making a right turn on red at high speed. Both of those would be captured as a violation. So that is one of the reasons why the numbers are high there.
Okay, well, it's right by my house, so I'm pretty familiar with the area, and it seems to me it's not the area where I witnessed the most speeding and the most people running red lights. So to see that camera accounts for over 92% of the tickets, and I'm guessing 694. I bet you there's not another camera in the region over 100, is there?
No, quite a few. So Simcoe Conlon is 486. It's the next one.
I just wondered the reason. I'm trying to sort it out, because that I wouldn't have picked as being, I should probably wouldn't have picked that as been a red light camera location regardless. But I know that's because we don't have a lot of regional roads in Ajax. But I definitely am surprised with those numbers compared to 21 at Bailey Sale or Lakeside or Lake Ridge Taunton, which I see people regularly, including large trucks and buses, running, and Bailey Salem at 38. I'm surprised by those numbers, but good. Maybe that means that they're having the effect and the residual effect that we wanted to see.
Yeah, I hope so.
We have our automatic speed enforcement program starting around December, I think. And I brought this up before, and I'm going to bring it up again, and probably going to bring it up every year. We get an update at the region. But I believe the region of Durham, and I'm not sure on this, but my understanding is the only region that does not administer the automatic speed enforcement for the lower level, lower tier municipalities. And I wonder if any more thought has been given to that. It makes much more sense from what we've been told by our staff to have it regionally overseen and administered than have 8 municipalities potentially doing it. Can you speak to that, please?
Sure, I can try to answer. There is a mix across the province. So a region of Peel and city of Brampton run separate programs, for example. Region of Niagara is planning to run their program for all their local area municipalities. Region of Waterloo is also running a program for all of their local municipalities. So it's not consistent. We do have the resolution from this council asking us to consider a region-wide program, and I believe a response. I know a response to that is in the works, so it will come up at regional council for discussion. From my perspective, we're happy to help out any way we can. Whatever decision gets made, we're here to help. And even though our programs are separate at the moment, we've been working pretty hard to help town staff and also City of Pickering staff get their programs up and running. So.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Those first municipalities you mentioned are quite a bit larger. So I guess the ones where they are running the regionally administered are more the size of Durham, and the local municipalities are more the size of Ajax, I would suggest.
I agree, and I will say, like, City of Brampton has more cameras than.
Well, they got 50.
Than the region of Peel. So the city has more than the region in that case.
How many does Pickering have?
2, I think.
2, yeah. So municipalities like Pickering and Ajax that have 5 between us. It's a different level. Anyway, I'll leave that with you, and I'm sure I'll ask it again. Anything further from members of council? Hearing, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Kemp. Really appreciate your update.
Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Moving on to items of correspondence. I have moved by Councillor Dyes. 1 second, let me bring this up. Moved by Councillor Dyes and second by Councillor Khan that the report dated October 18, 2021 containing items of correspondence be received for information. Do we have any polls? No, hearing, seeing none. Those in favor of receiving the correspondence? 1, 2, 3, 4. Any opposed? No, that's carried. Thank you. Moving on to reports. Community Affairs and Planning Committee, October 4th, 2021, moved by Councillor Crawford, second by Councillor Bauer, that the Community Affairs and Planning Committee report dated October 4th, 2021 be adopted. Any questions or comments on the CAP report? Nope. Those in favor of receipt, approval? Any opposed? That is carried. Moving on to the General Government Committee. I have moved by Councillor Leach, second by Councillor Dyes, that the General Government Committee report dated October 12th, 2021 be adopted. Questions or comments? Nope. Those in favor of approval? Any opposed? None opposed. That is carried. Moving on to the advisory reports. We have moved by Councillor Tyler Moore and second by Councillor Crawford that the summary of advisory committee activities report dated October 18, 2021 as attached to the meeting agenda be received for information and that the recommendations contained therein be referred to staff where applicable. Any questions on the committee reports, advisory committee reports? Nope. Those in favor of approval or receipt? I see all hands. That's carried. Regional reports. Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to mention really quickly at our Works Committee, and Steve touched on it a little bit. They're doing a study about dropping the speed. Currently, the lowest speed on a regional road is 50. And they're asking and looking to explore dropping that speed to 40 in certain areas. And one of the areas that affects, well, it only affects probably Ward 1, but Ajax as a whole is Kingston Road. It would be starting from 150 meters west of Mill Street to 150 east of Elizabeth, so directly through the village. Dropping, it currently is at 50 and they're looking to potentially drop that to 40. So that's just, I mean, it was passed through the Works Committee because there's many of my members that are in favor of that. Anyway, I think I just wanted to let you know that that's being investigated. It's not official yet. It's just really an investigation, but that's it.
Thank you. Councillor Lee, Councillor Dyes? No. I neglected to report last time. Finance reviewed the region's potential tax increase guideline, and I believe it came in at 2% suggested plus a 1/4 point for the grants program and a 1/4 point for the body worn cameras, which would bring it to 2.5 total overall. That's not what it is. That's just what the current recommendation from staff that came to Finance Committee is. And that's my update from Finance. Any questions on regional reports? No, Councillor Crawford, I'm glad you brought that up. I had to step away from the Works meeting. I saw the first part. I didn't stay for that, but I will be pulling and speaking to that at the next council meeting because that area along Highway 2, taking that to 40, it's already 50. We should ask DRPS about this when they were here because that's a bit of a contentious thing, but we are currently undergoing the work with Metrolinx right now at potentially putting the bus lanes down the center of Highway 2. And I think that will probably go a long way to mitigating the speed along that area and the traffic. And I'm going to be suggesting that they look at that and let that happen first before they just go ahead and cut it down to a speed that I don't think a lot of people will follow. But we'll see how that goes at Regional Council. So it's moved and seconded for receipt. If there's nothing further, those in favor of receiving the Regional Council reports? I see all hands. That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to notice of motion, Councillor Lee, Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Chair. So this is in regards to our residential parking permit program. I'll just read the therefore. So one, staff be directed to present and report staff be directed to present a report to council or the appropriate standing committee on the cost, timeline, potential scope of an updated town-wide residential parking permit study by no later than February 2022. And the RPP study shall include, at minimum, an examination of existing on-street parking supply, potential scope of the program, estimated costs and cost recovery mechanisms for the town, integration with the town's existing on-street parking programs, bylaws, estimated participant rates of residents and visitors, and estimated timelines for development and implementation. And if the chair allows, I'd like to speak on this as well.
Yep, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. So this came as a result of our updated parking bylaw, which we all supported. We deferred it from, I think it was last June to we deferred it out because of COVID. But I still think there's room for improvement for this. And I think we're seeing with future developments, we are reducing parking spaces, and ultimately the driving habits of residents are not changing. If anything, they're becoming more reliant on automobiles to get from point A to point B, whether it's to work, to school, etc. And so right now I just foresee this council having an issue down the line where residents are going to reach a tipping point in terms of their frustrations with the parking system. This was not made in mind for residents who don't use the garage. I firmly believe use your garage, empty it out. That's what it's there for. But in some cases, outside of the garage, there isn't enough space really for a second or even possibly third car, and that is my concern. You can see in the motion that the last time any sort of study was done was in 2008. It goes without saying that the Ajax of 2008 is very different than the Ajax of 2021, let alone 2022 and forward. So I just want to make sure that as a council, we're proactively addressing what we almost know by nature will be an issue. And so that's why we just ask staff to report back, and hopefully we can have a system, I envision and it's a system very similar to Toronto, where every 6 months you can apply for an on-street parking permit. There's designated areas in the town that could support that. And then hopefully we'll have less complaints to bylaw and to ourselves, and generally a happier populace. So that is the intention behind this motion. And I'd appreciate council support on this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford, as a seconder, did you want to speak before I open it up to questions?
Ditto. I agree 100% with what Regional Councillor Lee said.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of council wish to ask questions on the motion? Councillor Dice?
Thank you. Yeah, it seems an aggressive timeline, February, particularly when we're still working on budget, and we know that's going to be really tight. We haven't had, the slots revenue, we haven't had other programming revenue coming in, and there's quite a list of things that you want done by staff for this investigation, this research going forward. So I'm just wondering why the February timeline. We do have a report coming on the parking too, the waterfront parking that we tested out for the first time this year because of the number of people. So that's another one that they're working on probably for January. So can this be pushed out?
Absolutely.
Chair, for me. Thank you for the question. I actually envisioned this to be hopefully before any sort of budget decisions were made. Ultimately, this is just to ask staff to tell us how much a consultant would cost, as well as a timeline to complete the consultant's report. And that's why, if it did have budget implications, if we somehow were able to fit it into next year's budget, and I understand that's a stretch goal, then we can get started on that sooner, as opposed to having this done after budget and then have to wait an entire calendar year before we can even get started on this. So I do think there is some degree of urgency, at least from a lot of my residents who have contacted me and contacted Councillor Khan, and that's why the February 2022 timeline was established.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I have a few questions. I think Ms. Cooper is on the call. Is Mr. Hannon on the call?
Mr. Hannon is
Well-
not on the call, but I can attempt to answer your questions.
Okay, so we're gonna put you on the spot. I think you have. I had the report pulled from 2007 because I wanted to have a look at it the last time we updated this. Have you had a chance to review that, Ms. Cooper?
Yes, I did review the 2009 report.
Okay. So when that report was done, and I was on council then, Councillor Dies was on there as well. We hired a consultant in 2007. The report came to council in 2009. We paid $23,614 for it. Can you confirm for me, please? Because I understand the town has changed, but I don't think any of the housing that's been built since 2007 has a lot of wider roads or houses any further apart than they were when this study was done in 2007. My understanding is some of the problems were the houses being built close together. There's not a lot of on-street parking in some of our northern neighborhoods. And also the streets are too narrow to allow for parking. Can you confirm those were part of this study?
Yeah, so thanks for the question, Mr. Mayor. The report did speak to some of those concerns. One of the concerns it pointed to that I think you've alluded to is just that sometimes there aren't as many available parking stalls on residential streets as we might think. And the report gets into this a little bit, but it talks about setbacks required from intersections, from fire hydrants, mandatory setbacks from people's driveways in order to give them clearance to get out. And then factoring in the average length of a vehicle, that sometimes there just aren't as many parking stalls, legal parking stalls available on a street as one might think. So that sort of led into some of the conclusions of the report that talked about that uptake may be lower than expected, that the cost of the program would be quite expensive for the average resident, especially when, and the cost of the municipality when factoring some of the startup costs. And those were some of the things outlined in the report, yes.
Okay, and the startup cost was $1,500 per resident when averaged out based on what they projected the parking would be based on the parking available.
Yes, the parking available, the projected uptake, and then they talked about sort of the operating implications going to the ongoing costs. So the consultant that did that study indicated that it would require a full-time staff person to administer the program, and then a pretty robust enforcement program in order to make it such that it would be prohibitively expensive for someone to park illegally.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Cooper. I won't put you on the spot anymore. I just wanted to ask those questions just so I don't know if everybody's had a chance to read that report. I only had it pulled this morning. So but I wanted to make those public because I don't think a lot of those things have changed. And I'll just speak to this quickly. I'm not going to support the motion, and I'll just speak quickly why it. And I'm not. I mean, no disrespect, but this is one of those things we seem to look at on most terms of council. That and removing the windrow after the snowplow are two things that we seem to look at almost every term of council, and then we decide not to go ahead with because it's too expensive. But at the start of this term, this council made a pretty bold decision. We had two options, I think. One, look at on-street parking, or two, look at amending our boulevard and our driveway widening bylaws to be able to allow more parking options off the road and take cars off the road. And to me, going down this road would require staff to do quite a bit of work, but I think the conclusion would be the same for the reasons I've stated. But it also goes, I think, completely against what we already as a council have done. And it's taken us 2 years to get these all done and in place. And we, again, in 2019, had the occasional use permit come back again. And then we made amendments to that as well. And then in November last year, the waterfront parking. We've done a lot to do with parking. And this kind of goes against some of those things we've done. The other thing is, I don't think we've given all those changes we've made time to evaluate and see if they're going to affect anything at this point. They're new. They've just started. It took us 2 years to get to this point to have those amended. Actually, coming up right next in the bylaws, we're amending some changes to the Boulevard bylaw. So it's very new. It's as new as tonight. And I think we need to give these things the opportunity to run their course. Councillor Dyes alluded to the fact we haven't had our response or update on the waterfront parking plan yet. And some might say, well, why can we have paid parking there and not up in the north? And the reason is exactly what I said at the start. The roads are wider, the houses are further apart, and the parking exists where it doesn't exist in a lot of the northern municipalities. The other thing I didn't even get to, but I don't think that Mr. Greaves' department has the capacity to take this on in the time frame. But I just don't want to put that extra pressure on. We as a council have put a lot of stuff in the hopper, and staff are working on all these things. We're looking at, we've recently tasked them to come back with a report on backyard chickens and rats and some other things. So, I mean, we need to give a chance to get some of these through. And I'm hearing that when I bring things forward, because I'm probably the worst offender, that we need to give them the opportunity to get through. I don't think this will go anywhere. I'd be fine probably considering this once we've got those other things in place, but I just don't think it's going to get us where we need to be at this point. I'll just close by saying I don't get as many complaints now because I'm not a local councillor anymore, but I would probably be pretty close when I said for every one inquiry or complaint you get from a resident about wanting to have extra parking on your street, you probably get 8 or 10 from people complaining about people parking on their street in front of their house and needing enforcement. So councillors may have heard from a few residents wanting on-street parking, but I think this is going to set off a firestorm. You're going to hear 10 to 1 people coming back complaining when we now have to tell them if this went ahead that the car parked in front of their house can stay there for 6 months because they've got a permit. Just my thoughts, but I'm not going to support this as is. Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to it? Councillor Khan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So initially, when I looked at it, it seemed like a good idea, but after you spoke, Mr. Mayor, and the work that we've done with the Boulevard and meeting people at their driveways and discussing parking with them, I do agree that we probably need to give it some more time. I must say that since I've been educated a little bit more about the Boulevard encroachment that we've worked so hard to get, and I've been explained to the residents, I think a lot of people have got back to me and they're pleased with the results they've gotten so far. But I do believe that the mayor is right that we do need to give it some time. I do like the idea, but I think if we wait a little longer to see what the results are, then probably we can move forward and support this. But for now, I think the mayor is right. We need to give it some more time. Thank you.
Councillor Tyler Moore?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a tough one because at the end of the day, personally, I hate when residents get tickets. You know, everybody pays their property tax, and I actually hate when a resident gets a ticket. And that's why we came up with the initiative to widen the driveway. So that takes money and that takes time. But, you know, you either pay or you don't, because if you go with an initiative where you start getting permits, they have to pay for those. And then it puts cars back on the street. I'm just wondering, I know up in our friends just north here to Nottingham, it's tight. Not all of them can, but I think we need to really let it go. Maybe we can look at this after a year. I don't know. It's a tough one for me, but I think we need to stick with what we've done so far. And was there a consultant used, Mayor, do you know, or maybe Councillor Lee, for the parking plan that came out in June of 2021, the newest one? Was there an outside consultant used for that? Or was it our staff? Not saying it's not good at first.
On the meeting or not, or maybe Miss if Christy is on.
I think I can answer that question. It's Nicole Cooper here. So for the development and implementation of the waterfront management parking program, no, there was no consultant used.
Yeah, like so tough. Thank you.
I thought you were speaking of Boulevard, which I think Ms. Cruciano did, but that's fine.
I was speaking about if there was a consultant used for the new parking, not the one at the waterfront, but the one that's in all our wards. If there was a consultant used.
I apologize. The Boulevard encroachment policy did not use a consultant either. That was led by Cassandra Cruciano.
Councillor Bauer was next, and I saw Councillor Dye's hand for a second.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just saw in the, I meant to ask the final whereas you talk about particularly Ajax's newer communities. So I just want to confirm, this is not just meant for Ward 2 or Ward, like this is for across the town. Okay. And I agree with what Regional Councillor Dye said, that if there was a way to maybe push it out a little past February. So can you explain again why February is the date you picked?
Well, ideally, thank you. Sorry, through the chair. Thank you for the question. It's just in hopes that if it's a reasonable amount and we're able to put it in this year's or next year's budget, that we can get started on it sooner than later. Because ultimately, time frame wise, we're asking residents who are getting these tickets to now wait until this consultant's added to the budget, consultant for the consultant to do the work, and the consultant to report back to council. So I just think, based on the feedback we've been getting, I think it's prudent to act on this sooner than later. And so that's why I was hoping to kind of get this, if it's a reasonable amount, to at least put it maybe next year's budget, but at least put action for this now as opposed to waiting on it.
Further?
Okay, thank you for answering my questions.
Thanks, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Dyes, you had your hand up again.
Yes, thank you. And I just wanted to comment again, you know, I can't support this. We've had this discussion many times. It'd be nice to be able to figure out a way to fix everybody's issue with parking. It's just not going to work. We've done the encroachment policy and the bylaw for the driveways to help alleviate some of that problem by getting more cars in your driveways. We've had many different programs. It's not simple, but at the end of the day, I mean, when we did that study, the costs were significant costs in hiring a full-time staff, and a robust enforcement program. Well, that's going to, I would guess, you would probably need more staff there as well. And then having the system that can do this, because we notice that there were imperfections, you know, things you can't think about, or things that popped up with the computer system for even just the waterfront summertime parking policy. So there's a lot of issues there. And again, I have to stress, you know, this is a partnership. We work as a team, and our staff are part of our team. And this puts a lot of stress on them to do this at this point in time when we're working really hard on budgets. And you know, hopefully we'll get a Christmas break, and then you're into the new year. I just think it's too much at this time. We've asked a lot of them so far through a lot of our motions, and they're working diligently on all those asks. So I think that you know, I just, for those reasons, I just can't support it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further? Councillor Lee?
I'll just close, Chair, if that's okay. I just want to reiterate just one last time, this is not actually getting staff to us necessarily do the full breadth of work of figuring out the parking. It's to just look into getting the consultant and then figuring out the timeline for the consultant. That's why I thought 4 months was reasonable. But that said, it's, again, council will vote the way they want to vote. That's absolutely fine. I'd just like to request a recorded vote as well. Thank you, Chair.
Anything further? Okay. Mr. Clerk, recorded vote's been asked for by Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the motion before council, please state your position in favor or opposed. Regional Councillor Lee.
In favor.
Councillor Bauer.
Opposed.
Regional Councillor Crawford.
In favor.
Regional Councillor Dyes.
Opposed.
Counselor Khan,
Opposed.
Counselor Tyler Morin,
Opposed.
Mayor Collier.
Opposed. I was wondering if the clerk was going to read the results, but I can count to 5, so it was 5-2. That was not successful. Moving on to bylaws. A move by Councillor Bauer, second by Councillor Khan. Sorry, let me bring this up. That bylaw number 62-2021 and 66-2021 be read a first, second, third time and passed. Any questions on the bylaws? As I said, one of these is an update on the boulevard easements. Those in favor? Nobody in favor? There we go. Any opposed? Nope, none opposed. That carries. Thank you. Do we have any notice of motion? Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'll be bringing a motion forward in November about procedural change to the GGC and CAP meetings regarding the land acknowledgement.
Thank you. Any other notices of motion? Hearing and seeing none. Any new business or announcements? Councillor Crawford.
I'm going to let Counselor Tyler Morin do his announcement.
Councillor Tyler Moore.
Thank you. She knows I love doing this, and here I am struggling to get to the page. Regional Councillor Marilyn Crawford and I have our best loved Ward 1 community meeting coming up on next October 26th at 7 p.m. It's a Tuesday night, and we'll be discussing issues, and it's a virtual meeting. Make sure you sign up. But once again, the Ward 1 community meeting on October 26th at 7 p.m. You can visit our social media platforms if you'd like to sign up or send us a text or an email. We're always here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other notices or announcements? Councillor Bauer and Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. I wanted to bring attention to the public open house on Tuesday, October the 26th at 7 o'clock regarding the development proposal at Napton and Cedar in Ward 3. It's a virtual meeting at 7 to 9, and the proposal is for 23-story back-to-back townhouse dwellings within a condominium. I do believe you have to register. You can check on the town's website for more details. So
Just
next
to
Tuesday.
clarify, that's 23-story townhouses, not 23-story townhouses.
Sorry, 20 townhouses that are 3 stories
Thank you.
dwelling within a condominium. So please check the website for that open house information next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Khan, what's next?
Thank you, Chair. Just to recap, last Thursday, we declared earlier this month, Islamic Heritage Month, and town staff and the mayor generously let us do that proclamation in public in front of Heritage Square. We have several mosques in Ajax, and I reached out to a few of them to let them know we were doing it, and we did have a very good turnout. We didn't have much time. We knew the Wednesday before, the Thursday it was going to happen, so I just want to thank public Ajax residents who came out and supported this, and council as well. So we did in public for the first time declare Islamic Heritage Month October on the 14th, last Thursday at Heritage Square, and it was a historic moment for Muslims in the community all over the world, and especially in Ajax. And I want to thank staff and council and the mayor for that. Thank you.
That was, don't thank me. I did not have any part in organizing it. It was a very well done event, Councillor Khan, and you spoke very well at the event.
Thank you, sir.
Councillor Crawford, you are next.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to mention that Metrolinx is having 3 open houses coming up very, very soon. If you're interested in, they're going to be talking about the BRT project, the Durham Scarborough line. And it is at www.metrolinksengage.com, and you need to register. There are three dates, and you need to register. And if you're interested to find out where we are on this project, this is where to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other notices or announcements? Or do mine? Mine may be a little bit premature because mine is for November 25th, and we might have another meeting between now and then, but I will announce it today since it will be announced in the Talk Politics that comes out this week, that Thursday, November 25th from 7 to 8 p.m. will be the next Live with the Mayor. We haven't had one in a little while. It's going to be broadcast live on location at a local Ajax manufacturing business. So it's going to be kind of cool. We're going to try and do something a little bit different. Staff have some great ideas. More to come. Please watch our social media channels. If there's nothing further, we will move on to the confirming bylaw. I have moved by Councillor Bauer, second by Councillor Khan, the bylaw number 67-2021 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ajax at its regular meeting held on October 18th, 2021, be read a first, second, and third time and passed. Those in favor of approval of the bylaw? I see all hands. That is carried. Thank you. And finally, moving on to adjournment, moved by Councillor Crawford, second by Councillor Khan, that the October 18th, 2021 meeting of the Council of the Town of Ajax be adjourned. Those in favor? I see all hands, none opposed. That is carried.